but I pushed through hoping that it would get better, and it didn't. It did all of the things that I love for my horror/thriller books to do. All of them. I hated this book. I thought that it was horrible. Hey friends, I wanted to talk about my recent reads. I'm happy to say that I did not DNF any books in this episode of recent reads. I have about 8 books to talk about, and so let's just get into it. The first book I want to talk about is Into the Blue by Emma Brody. Into the Blue is a contemporary romance. It surrounds a girl named, what's her name? Oh God, I can't remember her name. A girl and a boy. The boy's name is Noah, and I cannot for the life of me remember what her name is right now. But this takes place over a few decades. They meet as kids. They're in high school. He's older than her. He's graduated before her. They both end up working at this video rental shop, and they end up becoming close friends, a little bit more than that. And then suddenly he disappears. And this all happens very early in the story. And there are reasons for his disappearance that go unknown to her for some time. And then eventually they run into each other again. And one of the things that they share is this love of acting and this chemistry that they can create between the two of them when they get together and they work and they do scenes together. The way this is written is so different from your ordinary contemporary romance. It had about like 80s vibes, like book nerd, film nerd vibes. It was a lot of fun to read. I really enjoyed the romance. It didn't feel icky or ushy-gushy. There was a little bit of steam in it and spice. I don't think that it was overdone to the point of being unreadable by those who don't really like spice. I thought it was done very tastefully. I really enjoyed it, and I end up giving it 5 stars. I believe I gave it 5 stars. Yes, I did. Highly recommend this. This was a new release, and I bought it on my Kindle like as soon as it came out and read it right away, and I'm glad that I did. It was such a fun book to read. I really just enjoyed their chemistry. I enjoyed the acting scenes and the way it feels magical at times, because they take you with him when they disappear into these scenes. It's really great. The next book I picked up was Weaving Shawl by Hiba El-Wasati. I think I wrote that down wrong. Anyway, this was another fairly new release. This is a fantasy book. I think it's young adult, which is not normally my tastes. I think that played a part in my ultimate feelings for this book. I didn't love it. I think it started out strong. This is about a girl who can see the dead, and she makes a bargain with this evil man in order to save the life of her brother, and she becomes basically indentured to him, and she has to work for him in his naughty deeds until he is satisfied that they are even, that she has fulfilled her dues, so to speak. And ultimately it ends up that, he's not the bad guy. There are other antagonists at play in this story. I think it had a lot of potential because of her abilities to see the dead. There are demons in this story. There is this big spooky castle. You have these rich families who have their own agenda and whatnot. So I think it had a lot of potential. I just think that ultimately it didn't really play out in a satisfying way. It felt very convenient. And I think that she did too much telling us instead of showing us when it came to their romance. When it comes to romance, I think that you want to see them fall in love. You want to experience it. You want to be invested in it. And in order to do that, you have to see it happen on the page. You have to experience the emotions on the page. And I really don't think that she did this. It just felt very like she was telling us because it was convenient for her, convenient for the plot. That's what she wanted to happen. So she made it happen, but she didn't show us. So I didn't love this one. I think I gave it 2.5 stars or something like that. I probably could have DNF'd it, but I pushed through hoping that it would get better, and it didn't. So the next book I read was We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver. This is a horror/thriller book. The premise is a female couple. They buy this house in order to remodel it, to flip it. And while one of the females is at home alone, a family shows up on her doorstep saying, "Hey, I used to live here as a child. Would you mind if I brought my family in and showed them around?" And our main character is very leery. She doesn't really want to do this, but she's also one of those people who has a hard time saying no. And so this family ends up inside her home, and from there things take a nosedive. This was so much more than I expected. So much more to this than meets the eye. It took a lot of twists, a lot of turns. There were some very creepy, spooky scenes within this story. It did all of the things that I love for my horror/thriller books to do. All of them. I loved this. I thought it was excellent. Excellently written. So much fun. And it was so unpredictable. So I highly recommend this book if you have not read it. I highly recommend it. I have already ordered his newest book, The Caretaker, which I expect to be coming my way soon. And I can't wait to read it because I've heard that The Caretaker does a lot of similar things that We Used to Live Here did. And if he is even able to remotely pull off what he pulled off in this book, I'm going to love it. And so, yes, I can't wait. I highly recommend. I gave it 5 stars. The next thing I read was The Red Winter by Cameron Sullivan. This is a fantasy novel, and the premise is about a man named Sebastian who is somewhat of an immortal. And it's really all very mysterious. But back in the day, he helped defeat this evil being, this evil creature that was terrorizing this town in France. And 20 years later, he is being recalled because the beast has returned. And so this story takes place in 3 different timelines, and you get to experience Sebastian's adventures and his relationships that he builds and then tears down and builds, and it's all very mysterious because you don't really know why Sebastian is this immortal being other than he has a demon that resides within him. That's not a shocker. It's, I think, in the synopsis, or not a spoiler, not a shocker. But so you don't know if that's why he's immortal, because this demon has attached itself to him, or if there's some other reason. We don't know. But it is very interesting to see this person who is... Sorry, my dog is walking around and his claws are clickety-clacking everywhere. But who should inherently be evil, right? He has a demon attached to him. He is immortal. You would think that those values, those things would inherently make him evil, but he is doing good deeds. He is trying to save the day. He loves people. He wants to save people. He has good intentions, but yet, he's living with a demon and a succubus too, a succubus. So it was a very fun read. It felt very whimsical, very almost childlike at times, the way it was told, just almost like a fairy tale. I really enjoyed it though. I thought it was really good. And at first I did feel a little bit of distance between myself and the main character, but as you spend time with him and these other characters, you really do get invested in his story and grow to feel his pain and feel that connection with him. So I thought it was a very good read, a very fun and entertaining time, and I also highly recommend it. I think I gave it 4 stars. The next book I read was Yesteryear by Carol Claire Burke. This book is all the rage on Instagram and BookTube and all the places where book people reside. And I was so anticipating this book. And let me just tell you a little bit about the premise, if you don't already know, which I highly doubt. This is about a girl who is an influencer. And this story is told kind of in 2 timelines, sort of. So you get a lot of her present day story to begin with, where you see kind of the highlights of her life. And then it delves back into her past and, where she started, how she met her husband, how she began her family, how she ended up on this farm. They live on a farm and it's called Yesteryear. And this is the basis of her influencer status. Her makes everything look hunky-dory, traditional wife values kind of thing. And so she ends up finding herself back in the 1800s. And so, of course, you are like, what is going on? How did she end up here? Why is she here? I hated this book. I thought that it was horrible. I think that the author did what she intended to do. She wrote an unlikable character, and she talked heavily about the online presence of people and how you only see the highlight reel. You don't see the dirty behind the scenes. That was her message. I think the way the book ended was poorly done. I think it was like a cop-out. I think that she took the easy way out and gave us an unsatisfying ending. I think that the premise of the story was great, and I think that there's a lot to be said for writing a book with unlikable characters, and I think that it had so much potential, but I honestly just hated it. Most of what people really are interested in seeing in this story is her presence in the past when they take her back to the 1850s, and really you just get the smallest glimpses of this timeline. Like you just get the littlest snippet, like maybe a 1, 2, or 3 page paragraph, and then you're back into the other timelines. And so I was just feeling very frustrated when this book was over. I was feeling let down and manipulated. And I think I gave it 2.5 stars. I don't recommend this book. I know it's a very polarizing book. There are people that love this book, and I get it. I can see that. Because she does accomplish some things that are interesting and true. And they pack a punch. But like I said, I think that the ending was a cop-out. I think that it was very unsatisfying. I think that it was just kind of like all this build-up to kind of a punch in the gut. So, enter at your own peril. So that's all I'm going to say about that one. The next book I read, and I just finished today, is Caliban's War by James S.A. Corey. This is book 2 in the Expanse series. And yes, I finally did it. I finally continued in the Expanse series after several years of, putting it off. Let me tell you that I didn't love this book. I'm sad to say. So the Expanse series is a series in which humans have expanded into the stars, or into our universe more. There's humans living on Mars, there's belters, people who live in the Kuiper belt that are in the Milky Way, and people that live on moons, and all this, that, and the other. And there are also, within these groups of people, different factions, different warring factions, of course, because, that's what humans do. We fight. And then also, there's also this new antagonist, if you will, called the protomolecule. It is basically a disease or a type of biological warfare that takes over Eros. This is not really a spoiler. I think it's pretty well in the synopsis. And so a lot of things happen surrounding this. There's a lot of political maneuvering. There's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of space travel. And I think that the best thing about this book in particular is the characters. You are introduced to a few new characters and you get back with some of the older characters. It has a very heavily focus on found family, this crew that works together, that loves each other, that respects each other. And I think that was the best part of this book, because I was just kind of bored the entire time. In this book, you're on another mystery adventure. You get to spend a lot of time with these characters, and that's great and that's fun. But ultimately, I think I was just bored. So 600 pages of political maneuvering, introducing new characters, and I don't know. I will continue in the series because I do hear that some of the books are like this. Some of the books just aren't as good as others, but there are a few that really stand out. So yeah, I'm going to continue because I am interested in what happens to these people, this crew. That was a 3-star read for me, 3.5 maybe. The next book, and these next two I am currently reading. The next book I picked up was The Curse of Chalion by Lois McMaster Bujold. This is a fantasy book, and I believe it is book 1 in a series. And I am only like 20% of the way in, but we're following this man who used to be a part of this kingdom. He wasn't like royalty or anything, but he worked within the castle and had some connections within the castle, and he ends up going off to war. And he ends up becoming a slave, and then he finds himself back at the doors of the castle, basically begging for a place to stay, for a job, for a place to be. He finds himself entangled in the royal family's business, and that's really all I know. I think there are some magical elements that will come into play soon. There's a mystery, some court intrigue. It is a slower paced book so far, I will say that, which I'm not surprised. This is an older book. I'm not even sure when it was written. I would have to go look because I didn't note it down. But it almost feels reminiscent of like Robin Hobb and whatnot, those type of really character-driven fantasy stories. But I've heard really good things about this book. I do believe its rating was like a 4.4 or something on Amazon or Goodreads. So I do expect this book to get better and really pick up with the intrigue and the mystery, and I am excited to get to it. Then I decided after I finished, because usually I have one book going on my e-reader and one physical book going, and so The Curse of Chalion is on my Kindle, and so I decided after I finished Caliban's War, for my next physical book, I just received this in the mail yesterday, but I decided to pick up The Girl with 1,000 Faces by Suni Dean. This is the broken binding copy, which I didn't even know I was getting because I belong to 2 of their subscription boxes, one of which is the sci-fi box or the sci-fi and fantasy box. Those are the 2 that I belong to. And so this is a standalone, I believe. But look how pretty, of course, the broken binding edition is. But anyway, I just had to pick this up because I've heard such great things going around the interwebs about this book. Everybody that has read it recently has given it rave reviews, and I just couldn't not pick it up right away. So this is about Mercy Chan. So she is a triad exorcist with a mysterious past. After washing up on the shores of Hong Kong with no memory during World War II, she found a home in Kowloon Walled City, an infamous ghost-infested slum full of lost and traumatized civilians. Since the war ended, Mercy has rebuilt her life and found work as a ghost talker for the local triad, dealing with the angry and bitter spirits who haunt this place. But the past she can't remember won't let her go. An unusually powerful ghost lurks in Kowloon's waterways, drowning innocents and threatening the district. Unnervingly, it claims to know Mercy and her forgotten childhood. As Mercy is drawn into a deadly cat and mouse game with this malignant spirit, she begins to realize that the monster she fights within these walls may well be one of her own making. A breathtaking historical fantasy where ancient myths and local legends combine in a story of ghosts, grief, and women who will not forgive. And I am 20 pages in, and I'm loving it already so far. The writing just feels super immersive and fluid. Like, she's very descriptive, but not overly so. You really get a feeling of the surroundings. Like, it just feels very vivid. And I adore the immediate introduction to ghosts. Like, it wastes no time. There is a cat ghost, a mugwai, if you please. So I'm obsessed immediately and just can't wait to continue. This book is pretty short. It's only like 308 pages. So I'm no doubt that I'm going to fly through this book, and I can't wait to talk about it when I'm done. So stay tuned for that, because I will certainly update you as after I finish it. And yeah. So that's it. That's what I've been reading. I am so glad that I haven't had any DNFs, even though I have had some bombs. I still have pushed through and read and been, pretty happy with what I've been picking up. So I would love to hear what you've been reading lately, what you've loved, what you've hated even. And if you've read any of these books that I talked about and you have something to share that's non-spoilery in the comments section, please drop me a comment down below. If you haven't subscribed, I would love for you to subscribe and stay here and continue to watch. And yeah, until then, until the next time, I'll see you later. Bye!